All right. So we have two speakers from Daimler that are going to be presenting together. So Michael Nadig and Lauren Brush were asked by Andrew McLandris to present. Michael and Lauren are both young mechanical engineers who recently graduated and found jobs at Daimler Trucks North America. Lauren is currently working on framed cross members in the structures team, but has recently received a promotion. Michael is currently working on brake systems and wheel ends. Both hope to talk about college, transitioning into the workforce, and the type of opportunities a career in engineering has afforded them. Plan for a healthy amount of question and answer period from students. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think either of us need that.
I do. Lauren will be fine.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's usual. Do you guys all have Chromebooks?
Do you guys all have Chromebooks? That's a thing now? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Oh my god. Okay, anyways, sorry, I was really surprised. That sounds awesome.
Get past that.
Yeah, go past it, there we go. So my name's Lauren Brush, like he said. This is Michael Nadig, and we're here from Daimler Trucks. We both graduated, I graduated about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, from Oregon State. We'll go into it a little bit, but we thought it'd be nice to come in and talk to you guys just a little bit about, right out of college. It's a little bit easier probably for you guys to refer to, a little bit closer to your age than some of the other people that are coming to talk to you. So yeah, let's just get started. Perfect. So like I said, we work at Daimler Trucks North America. Has anyone actually heard of Daimler before? Okay, more than I thought.
Your parents work there?
Yeah, do anyone's parents work there? That makes sense. Before college, I had never even heard of Daimler before. A little background, they own Mercedes-Benz, so that's one thing everyone's heard of them. So they also own Freightliner trucks, which is what we both work on currently, and also Western Star trucks. So basically, we're building semi-trucks every day, which is pretty fun stuff. Yeah. So a little bit about myself real quick. I went to Oregon State for the Formula One team. I worked a little bit on suspensions there and aerodynamics. At Oregon State, I was also one of the College of Engineering ambassadors. So if anyone came for a tour of the college, I was the one usually giving the tour, your building on the left, that kind of stuff. But I also went into a bunch of different engineering classes and was just kind of the voice between the students and the college itself to make sure everyone was getting what they needed. When I moved into Daimler, I really loved the teaching aspect still of engineering. So I'm really involved in STEM. So that bottom, your guys' left photo over there. I go to elementary schools all over Portland and teach kids about science and technology, engineering, and math. And I'm also super involved on our Daimler soccer team.
Good stuff. All right, so as Lauren said, my name is Michael Nadig. I graduated from Gonzaga University this last spring. I started with Daimler in July, and my presentation is going to be more about my college experience and mostly the do's and don'ts for you guys so you can learn from my mistakes. Next slide, please. So to understand where I went wrong in college, you kind of have to understand who I was in high school. So actually, before I get started, how many of you are seniors? Okay, so you guys are going to school probably. How many of you are juniors? Okay, so you're starting the process, SAT, sophomores, freshmen? Oh, nice, good on you. All right, fair enough. Okay, so do you guys have AP classes? I don't actually know if those still exist.
We have stats. We have AP stats.
AP stats? Okay. All right. Well, when I was in high school, we didn't have Chromebooks, but we had AP classes. So there you go. There's a trade-off. So I went to Mountain View High School in Vancouver, Washington. That is just north of here, across the river. High school for me was kind of meh. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. Not a lot to complain about. I dug sports. I still like sports today. I wasn't a great student though, in the sense that I had terrible study habits. So the way a semester would go for me is for the first 2 months, I wouldn't try at all. I would get C's and D's on my report card and midterms. And then I would go, oh man, yeah, I should probably work a little bit harder. And then I would work really hard to get A's and B's at the end. So if you guys are familiar with AP classes, my school had a policy where if you got a 4 or a 5 on your AP test, you got an A in the class. So I really took advantage of that. I don't know if they still do it like that, but I was sold. So
a great mentor.
Yeah, this is the reality of it. So all of those classes with like 4s and 5s, I didn't have A's in any of those classes, so it really helped my GPA. But yeah, I had terrible study habits. I didn't study the first half of the semester, and I just worked my tail off to make up for it at the end of the year.
Does anyone do that now?
Yeah, that's good self-awareness back there. All right, good on you. All right, so next slide, please. So I decided to go to school at Gonzaga University. If any of you are familiar with college basketball, you might have seen the game last night against University of Washington. Barely edged it out. It was a pretty close game. Spokane is pretty close to Portland. It gets a bad rap, but I really like the city. The city is what you make of it, and I really enjoyed it. I used to joke that it was close enough to my mom where she wouldn't get worried, but far enough away from dad where I could still get in trouble. And that was pretty true throughout my 5 years there. Next slide, please. So this was my freshman year. I went into school not knowing anything about engineering. I had taken physics, I had taken calc, but that was it. So you guys, in a sense, are way ahead of me. You have had some technical classes. I was looking at the class list and talking to your teachers beforehand, hearing about the opportunities that you guys have here is really, really cool. So I started out as an electrical engineer and didn't really dig it. Kind of had the same issues in high school that I had in college, which is going to be a theme here. Calc 2 was basically BC Calc, so I didn't really have to study hard for that. CPen 230, Digital Logic, was a really tough class. Big reason why I'm not an electrical engineer today, actually. Class was really hard. So midterms came around. I had C's and D's on my report card, but I knew I could pull it out. And one click, yeah. So my semester GPA was a 2.77, which how many of you would be proud if you got a 2.77? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's about what I expected to see. I was not very proud either. So yeah, bad habits from high school really, really cost me. But I took it as, look, this is my first semester in college. Everything is going to be so much fun. Like, that was kind of a fluke. So I didn't really take any lessons from it. And then one more slide. So my next year, I changed my major. I was like, electrical engineering isn't really for me. I changed to civil engineering. And civil engineering is basically bridge building and, you know, what do they do? I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't know. But I failed to make any adjustments after the first semester. I thought the second semester would be better. I was taking actual engineering classes instead of like, you know, lame English classes and religion classes. Since Gonzaga is a religious school, I had to take religious classes. But I didn't learn anything. So same thing happened. Midterm grades, midterm grades, I got back and I barely made a dent and I ended up with a 2.33. And since none of you would be proud of a 2.77, I don't have to ask the question for a 2.33. So yeah, it was a really, really tough freshman year. Next slide. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that is the worst summer of my life. That sucked. Moving back in with your parents after a year of college sucks. It doesn't matter if you get a 4.0 or a 3.5 or whatever, something you're proud of. Moving back in, you feel like you've been in college. You've had 8 months on your own. You're way more independent, but your parents, you come back to your parents and they still think you're in high school, and it will annoy the shit out of you. And it's not only that, but my parents were super pissed at me. At this point, they were still helping me pay for college, and they were like, look, what you put up was unacceptable. And rightfully so, it was unacceptable. So my confidence was really low. I had gained 15 pounds. Freshman 15 is a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah,
100%.
it will absolutely snag you. So in school, I was struggling from high stress. My confidence was shot. I wasn't the student I thought I was. I had really poor grades, poor physical health, and poor mental health. And over the summer, I had a lot of time to think about what had gone wrong over freshman year. And I realized it really had to do with poor time management and a lack of discipline. So going into sophomore year, I had a plan. And right now, we're actually going to look at my 4-year turnaround transformation at GU. So the blue graph here is my GPA for the semester, and the orange is my cumulative line. And I started out at a 2.53 cum after freshman year, and I was able to fight my way back up to a 3.03, which most people in here are probably looking at and like, dude, like, that's still not that good. I was super proud of that. moving up 50 points was super tough. My line going up is something I'm really proud of. Most people start off super high and then kind of go down. Mine actually goes up. So, but that's because I did super crappy my freshman year, so don't do that. So the 3.0, why is 3.0 important? Internships are super important when you're going through engineering school if you decide that's what you want to do. And most companies that are worth their salt have a cap where if you are below a 3.0, don't even apply. You're not even going to make it through the door. So it's really important to get at least a 3.0. Now, if you want to work for NASA, that line is like a 3.8. You know, that line's a 3.5. Don't 3.0 should not be your goal when you go to college. I'm just saying that this is my journey and my story, and getting a 3.0 was where I was fighting. So you see that it actually went up after that freshman dip, and we'll go into why that happened. So graduation, I was sitting in the Spokane Arena looking around at my classmates. I finished with a 3.03, which is exactly 50 points increase from my freshman year. I had a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering, a German language minor, and a business entrepreneurship minor. And then as a resume boost, I also am a licensed engineer through the National Council of Examiners for Engineering. They put on a really tough test. It's like a 7-hour test, 100-question test every year for mechanical engineering students coming out of college. It's called the FE exam, the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. And I studied my tail off to pass that test. And by the end of it, I had 2 internships with Daimler and 1 internship with a local Spokane company. And after a month of graduation, a month after graduation, I had an offer at Daimler. So what I want to go into is why I was able to make this turnaround from freshman year, and how even if you start off a little bit slow, it's not the worst thing in the world. So over the summer sophomore year, I had identified 2 problems. One was time management, one was building discipline. To address the time management issue, I used a bucket time management system. So if you are not good at keeping a planner, the bucket time method might be good for you. That's where you just take your day and chunk it into hours and say, okay, I want to spend 2 hours at the gym. I'm going to be in class for 4 hours, and then I'm going to spend 4 hours on homework. And that's the only organization you do. You just make sure that you get that done throughout the day, and then you can go home feeling rested. Building discipline. So discipline is a muscle, and you use it all the time. It's the difference between doing your dishes after you're done or leaving them in the sink. It's something that you can never turn off. You are always building or losing your discipline, and that was a huge lesson for me. If you need a place to start, I would say start by cleaning your room. That is actually a lot harder than it sounds. Like, even if you keep your room clean, like, is it as organized and optimized as it could be? You know, that is something you can always improve with, making it work for you. And then developing a regular sleep cycle. So this was a big one for me. I went to bed late, I woke up late, I didn't care. I would constantly flutter in my sleep cycle. It's actually really important for mental health to regulate your sleep cycle, so your body can get into those rhythms. So at school, I would go to bed at 11 o'clock every night and wake up at 7. That was a big thing. So joining an engineering club. When you guys go to university, you will have opportunities to join a ton of clubs. Make one of them engineering related. Throughout my tenure at Gonzaga, I was a part of the robotics club, submarine club, SAE Baja, which is the one I really liked. I always liked cars, so going into that one was a good fit. We might talk about it later in the presentation on how I was able to snag an internship with kind of a crummy GPA. This was one of the reasons. So the reason why I might have made it where other kids didn't is because I had the confidence that I could actually do engineering work. You know, there's a difference between going to school for engineering and actually designing parts and putting it out there and making things. And I was confident I could actually do the job, even though my grades weren't the best. Also, it was a great networking opportunity. I was able to meet kids who were smarter than me and go like, hey, like, what'd you get on that problem? Like, oh, I was way off. Okay, cool. I'll go try that one again. So that was a huge reason why I made it, and maybe somebody else might not have. And then I had an amazing support group. My family believed in me. I had friends believing in me, Gonzaga professors and mentors. One of those professors is Dr. Farrow. He's the man. If you guys go to Gonzaga, you'll know him. He'll know you. He's a good guy. And then the guy in the end there is, it was supposed to be my professor, Isaac Andrews, but there wasn't a picture of him, so I just put a picture of Bing Crosby on there because he's a famous Gonzaga alum. I don't know. That's why I did. All right. So learn from my mistakes. Don't start off flat your freshman year. And even if you do start flat and you change your major 3 times and you do really crappy, you can still pull out of it. You just gotta stay the path. Some other practical advice that I thought of that didn't really fit in the presentation would be that you might want to consider choosing a career path with you might want to consider a major with a more defined career path. I have friends who graduated, top of their class in like English and psych, and they are really struggling to find jobs right now. It's a tough market, no matter where you graduate or what your GPA is, it's tough. So just consider that. And then also when choosing a major, consider the type of lifestyle you want to live when you're older. If you want to live in a really expensive part of town and have a whole bunch of things, work that into your decision. Because engineering for me, it's something I'm good at. It's something I'm decently passionate about. But part of doing engineering is having the opportunities to go and talk to you guys and go out to North and South Carolina when we were there last week and, go travel and go experience things. So that's part of the reason why I chose engineering. So yeah, we'll get into questions later. Think about your college questions for Lauren and I. She just graduated as well. And then I think I'm going to hand it off to you, Lauren. Do you need this? You probably don't need this. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so since Michael kind of already went over, what not to do in college, and what to do, I guess, I had kind of the exact opposite experience.
Thanks.
No problem. So I've known since I was in elementary school that I wanted to do engineering. I grew up with a grandpa who was a engineer for the Merchant Marines. So growing up, I had that very stereotypical grandpa that would not give me dolls for Christmas. He would give me Legos and Lincoln Logs and stuff like that, and mini robots to build. So I've known that what I wanted to do since I was little. So I went straight into mechanical engineering knowing, all right, this is what's for me. I actually met our chief of engineering now at a networking event at Oregon State. So kind of like what Michael was talking about, networking is so important. And it kind of sounds like it would be not a big deal. You just go and talk to people, hand out your business card or whatever. Not a huge deal. That's how I got my job. It's a huge part of your everyday life in colleges. You want to put your best foot forward and meet as many people as you can. Career fairs, people just don't go to them. But we go to career fairs from Daimler's side now, hoping to hire people. People are there for a reason. They really want to hire you. So any type of networking like that is really beneficial. So Michael and I both interned for Daimler in the summer of 2016. So that was right before junior year or senior year? Senior year. Senior year. So we were kind of those try-hard interns, I would say. There were a few interns that just, they just went through their day, they were getting paid, whatever. Michael and I were putting in that extra effort because we knew we wanted to work there when we graduated. It's like a 6-month interview, basically. So internships are extremely important. And when I went back to school, I just didn't stop talking to the people that I was working for. And I think they hired me specifically to shut me up. Stop emailing me, we'll give you a job. But it helped. So I started working at Daimler full-time October of last year. So I've been there a little over a year now. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about is more what we do as designers and mechanical engineers. So there are a lot of different paths you can take in engineering. I know Oregon State alone has 13 different majors within engineering. I knew that I wanted to be working in CAD and designing parts, seeing them go on trucks. So I went straight into mechanical. My first day, my manager handed me this on a piece of paper and it was laminated. And he goes, "You are going to live by this." And I said, "Nope, I do not like this at all. There's way too many words." So, next slide. This is what I created instead. I took all the unimportant stuff out. It was not good with my manager, but it's fine. So this is kind of what Michael and I go through on a daily basis. This is the process that you go through when you're designing a part, and that's what the rest of my presentation is going to really be about. So we start with customer requirements. You know, if you guys have, any of you have worked in customer service, you always hear that customer is always right, and that's the most frustrating statement ever when you're an engineer, but it's right. Like if you don't design something the customer wants, they're not going to buy our trucks. So we kind of have to live by it. After you really get your customer requirements down, you go into basic concept creation. We'll go through that a little bit. And then you get to constraints. So you could have this phenomenal idea, but there's going to be 15 reasons why it doesn't work. And I had a lot of that. I felt like in school, like my senior design project, I had this incredible idea, I thought, and I brought it to my professor, and he was like, can't even manufacture that. He's like, just because you can draw it in CAD doesn't mean you can actually build it. So there are definitely constraints. Then you get into concept detailing, where it's more of like the CAD that you guys are working in right now. There's so many things in CAD that you haven't even learned yet, that I haven't even learned yet. There's so much to it. And then you go into analysis, which is the fun part. Thank you. So concept creation, this is what everyone thinks of when they see concept creation. It's like Matthew McConaughey talking about his Lincoln and like why he has an awesome stereo. Or like, did you guys see this commercial on TV? Do you guys know what this is, right? With the hamsters dancing around the Kia, right? Okay, I'm not the only one that loved that commercial. So what concept creation actually is it's really art-based. So as engineers, we're very technical and everyone's like, oh, they probably do straight lines all the time and all they do is math. No, I don't want to say this. I haven't done math in a very long time. I just throw that out there. So a lot of the concept creation is art. We have a lot of people come in from like our design department and the marketing department doing a lot of like hand sketches. It's much more organic that way than drawing it on the computer. And it has a lot of brainstorming. We have engineers from all different departments come in. You have a lot of people from styling come in that don't have engineering degrees and are just like really marketing based. And they'll look at some of our designs and say, no one's gonna buy that. And then you can just throw it out. So actually a lot of fun. Next slide. So once you have kind of your concept down, and yes, I put Iron Man on my presentation. I'm a nerd, sorry.
She loves Marvel movies. That's what I'm laughing.
I am a mechanical engineer because of Iron Man. It's fine. I wanted to build my own, so. And Transformers. Anyone Transformers fans? Yeah, we designed those. It's fine. Not a big deal. So once you get through a basic concept and you know that a customer might actually want to buy it, you get into the much more detailed creation. So that's where the CAD comes in. We still use clay modeling, which I think surprises people. A lot of our cabs, they'll actually build full-size cabs with clay and then go over them with air, like in our wind tunnels, to see how the aerodynamics would work. It's really, really interesting stuff. So once you have kind of a prototype, that goes to manufacturing. Daimler, thankfully, is such a big company that we have a prototype, like a fab shop right down the street. So you create something, you send it to the building down the street, and you can pick it up 2 days later. Like, it's really fast turnaround, which is really cool in a big company. So as soon as you have those prototypes, then you get into the testing. So we have 4 basic types of testing. I took electrical off because I'm just not super into it. It's a lot of wires. People love it, it's fine. But my 4 that I really work with are wind tunnel testing, FEA. Do you guys do FEA in your CAD class yet? Have you done any of that?
No.
No? Okay. I do it a lot. We'll talk about it. Tensile and compression testing, and then post-build testing.
Do you guys know what FEA stands for?
Oh, okay. Finite element analysis. I'll talk about it a little bit. Next slide. So, back one. Perfect. So we have a wind tunnel at Daimler. It's right off of Swan Island. We are one of the very few companies in the country, actually, that have our own full-size wind tunnel. So a lot of companies have like to scale model ones where they can put in a truck like this big. And they're like, oh yeah, it's aerodynamic. You don't know from that. Like, there's no way. So we have a full wind tunnel that we built in 2004 that we can bring the entire truck into. And it's just right down the street. So it's cool how involved we get to be in this process. They create winds up to 65 miles an hour, and we have rain simulators too, so we can check all of the leaks in the windshields and stuff like that. Do you guys know what CFD stands for? Okay, that's something else you will learn probably in your CAD classes. It's computational fluid dynamics. So basically, it is the computer model of what a wind tunnel is doing. So when you have fluids like this, you push air over this truck in CAD, and you can see where all of the air pockets are going to be, which really helps with aerodynamics. Next slide. FEA, so finite element analysis, basically takes one of your parts and breaks it into like 1,000 tiny little cubes. And then you put forces on it, like a force body diagram or something like that. So say I have a nut and a bolt. I'm going to put a huge force on that nut and bolt to see if it's actually going to slip. Well, instead of having to go down to the fab shop and do all of this work myself, I can do it all on the computer, and it's going to tell me exactly where are those stresses coming from, where is it really going to break down. So it saves a ton of money that you can do all of this on the computer before even having to prototype at all. So I just designed a new part that's going on one of our frame rails, and it's going to take a couple $100 to make it. Well, I get to do all of this in FEA first to make sure it's going to work before I physically test it. Thankfully it worked, so putting that couple $100 in now. Next slide. Post-build testing is really fun. This is going to look like a really weird video, so I'll explain it. We have a test track out in Madras, Oregon that has a ton, it's so fun. It has a ton of tracks that are worst case scenarios of what some of our trucks would do. So we have logging trucks that are just driving over dirt all day long, right? So they make up these tracks in concrete and then drive the trucks over them, and you're sitting in the cab just like, all right, let's see how this goes. I'm in the suspension team now, so when you're thinking about these types of tracks, suspension is so important because it's like, okay, is your driver going to be bouncing all over the place? My head hit the ceiling. Like it's a lot of testing, but it's a lot of fun. So other tests that we do after post-build is the cold chamber. So we'll bring an entire truck into this chamber where it gets to, what is it, like negative 25, something like that. And so we have a lot of logging trucks that are up in like British Columbia and Canada. It gets to that temperature there, so we need to make sure that our trucks actually work in that temperature. So we have this huge cold chamber, and we just bring down the temperature as low as we can, and then do all of these tests while sitting in the truck. You get really puffy jackets. It's kind of cool. We also do tests like door slams. Can you try clicking on that video? It should work. Oh, you're fine.
The top right.
The top right with the hood. Okay, watch this then. It's hilarious. Little nod at the end, like, got it. So that's an actual test. Like, he does it once, and they say, okay, perfect, the hood actually works. Then they create a robot that'll do it thousands and thousands of times over and over again to make sure those hinges actually work well. So lots of testing like that. Next slide. So what Michael and I do, I kind of broke it down being actual chassis engineers. Does anyone know what a chassis is if you're involved in automobiles at all? So a chassis is basically like the ladder of a truck. So you have this here, these are your two frame rails, and then you have cross members coming down. It's basically like a ladder, and that's what the whole weight of the truck is put on. So Michael and I both work within the chassis. Right now I'm designing this section, the frame rails itself, and I help on the cross members. That's keeping everything together. The team that I'm moving to actually on Monday does all of the suspensions in here. So I'll be working a lot on aerodynamics and ride height, stuff like that. So this would be called our empty chassis, and this is our fully loaded chassis. So this means everything like fuel tanks, I don't know, everything that goes on a chassis basically. And then you have the cab, which is the fancy styling part that goes on top of everything. Next slide. So some of our current models, you know, a lot of people haven't heard of Daimler. All of these, you guys see them on the road every day and probably just don't think about it. They come up and you're like, oh shit, like they're going way too fast to be this kind of vehicle. It's even more terrifying when you know what these things can do. Like designing them now is like even scarier on the road, but they're pretty safe. So Michael and I helped design different aspects of all of these different models, which is really cool. It's a really cool sense of ownership to be driving down the road and see one of those 114s and be like, hey, I designed the oil pan guard for that thing, you know? Stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. One of the differences in semi-truck design, you know, you get a new Toyota, whatever, Camry, and those come out like every year, right? Or like less than every year with new designs. new semis come out every, like, what did I say, like 5 to 7 years, sometimes 10. So a design that I'm working on right now isn't even gonna go on a truck until 2020. So these projects, like, you guys think some of your class projects last a long time? This one, I'm so over it already, and I still have like 1.5 years left. Like, it's a long process of going through the entire, like, starting your design and actually seeing it on a truck. So it's a long haul, but it's definitely worth it in the end. Next slide. One of the biggest things that our company works on right now is the super truck. Have you guys ever heard of this? No? Okay. We think we're so much cooler than we are. Like, I think it's awesome, but no one knows what it is at all. So this truck took about $115 million in research and development and to build it. It has about 12.2 miles a gallon, which sounds awful. My pickup truck does like 17. So this thing, it just sounds like you're gonna have to spend so much money on gas, but an average semi-truck now is what, like 6 to 8 miles a gallon? So this thing is incredible. It has this grill over here that opens and closes depending on the speed that it's driving at. It also has this thing where the distance between the back of the cab and the trailer actually shrinks or gets bigger depending on how fast you're going for aerodynamics. So you can see this thing driving down the road, and as soon as it slows down, its trailer actually backs up, and it's all based on sensors. So I guess electrical could be kind of cool. Yeah. But the fuel savings is like 10,000 gallons of diesel a year that they're saving. So think of all that money that we're saving a customer right now. It's a lot of really cool projects to work on. Next slide. So I kind of said a little bit about what we do on a daily basis. Michael said what to do and not to do in college. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Is this still on? Okay.
Oh, goodness. Any questions? Yes.
So I'm curious about truck design. I noticed that trucks in Europe, they don't have like the nose and they're just flat on the front, and in America it's the other way. So is it just like space efficiency in Europe that influenced that decision?
A little bit, yeah. They also have a lot of older infrastructure than we do. So think about how much heavier all that extra room in the front has to be. They have so many different laws that, you know, they have a bridge that can't have near as much weight on it. There's a lot of that. They also don't do near as long of hulls. So like our sleeper cabs have, you know, like a queen size bed and a huge TV and a fridge and everything in the back, and they don't have that really. They do a lot of day trips, so they don't need as much space.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the number one challenge you face when testing trucks?
Huh.
Things breaking and the
It
data
sucks.
saying that it shouldn't break, but you're just left with a part that's broken. It's the most frustrating thing that I probably experienced.
Yeah, Madras, our test track that I was talking about, it really sucks when you go out there and you watch a truck with your design and you watch it driving down this track and one of your parts just falls off and you're like, well, I'm shit out of luck. Like, all right, back to the drawing board. So that's rough. It doesn't happen near as often, thankfully,
Yeah.
but that's a huge challenge, you know, going from being in CAD and thinking everything's going to work perfectly to getting it out in the real world. It's completely different. So that was something that they didn't really teach us in school. Yeah.
Is Daimler still based in Germany, or did it move to the US?
Daimler itself, yes, is definitely based in Germany. We work for a section of Daimler called Daimler Trucks North America. So as much as I would love to say I work on Mercedes, I don't. I just work on trucks. Other questions? Nothing. We got seniors. You're about to go to college. You have no questions about that. It's just as much fun as people say, let me tell you.
Are most of you guys going to like Oregon State or Oregon? Any nods? Anybody going to Oregon State? Oh yeah, we got one back there. Oregon
You going to
State.
Oregon State?
Maybe.
Go Beavs.
When do you guys have to make your decision? When is it like spring? It's May. It's May.
You got time.
Yeah,
Don't
you
let
guys got plenty
football
of times.
be your deciding factor.
Then you definitely wouldn't go to Oregon State.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can say it. It's a lot of losing. Faithful fans. That's what we call it.
Don't worry.
Very loyal. Very loyal. You have to be.
Where are some of you guys going? Who's going the farthest? Is anybody going to like the East Coast or like down south? California. Anybody going to California? No? Wow. Cool. A lot of them don't know. Oh, damn. Yeah, I guess.
They got time. Yeah, they have a lot of time.
That's cool.
That makes sense.
That's pretty nice. How many of you think you're going to go into a STEM field? So science, engineering, math.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Sweet.
How many of you are seniors going into a STEM field? Keep your hands up. Okay, how many of you are in this class but don't think you're going to do a STEM field? All right, fair enough. No, I'm just curious.
Okay.
So of those STEM people, how many are engineering? Okay, most of you.
Do you know what type of engineering you guys want to do yet?
Yeah, what do you got? Yeah, what do you want?
Biomedical.
Biomedical?
Oh, you're
That's
one of
rad.
the smart
Very cool.
ones. That was not my thing. Good for you.
Yeah, next year.
Mechanical.
Hey, there you go. All right on.
Not that you're not one of the smart ones. I don't mean it like that. But. All right.
What's your guys' biggest worry about going to college right now? Other than paying for it, which should be your biggest worry. No worries. You guys are like, yep, we're good, dude.
Oh,
Don't worry
you
about
are
it.
in for it. Yeah.
I mean, granted, I still have a bit of time to mentally prepare, but I feel like it would be weird adjusting to that sort of schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. Like,
No attendance. That takes
Yeah.
some getting used to.
yeah, that
They don't
it's a
take
lot of
attendance,
responsibility. There were a lot of, like, 8 a.m. classes freshman year where I was like, man, I don't need to go to that one. And I didn't, and I suffered for it, like you saw, so don't go to class.
One thing that's really interesting.
Wait, don't go to class or don't not.
No, go to class, yeah. Sorry. You can skip it.
You can skip it. It should be fine. No, one thing that's really interesting to do is when you're going into school and you're like, do I really need to go to this class? If you do the breakdown, I'm from California, so I had to pay out-of-state tuition. So if you look at like how much each class itself is costing, I'm like, oh, it's $200. Do I really need to go? And then you definitely want to go after that when you realize how much money you're spending.
Yeah, if I was smart enough to figure that out, I probably wouldn't have skipped that much class.
It's all about the climb. Yeah.
Can I just ask why you chose to go to Oregon State?
That's a really good question.
That is. So I'm really into so many reasons not to go. Just kidding. So I'm really into Formula One. I knew from the beginning I really wanted to work on cars, so that was a huge part of it. Being from California, I hated the heat. I did not like it, and I moved up here. And I went on that initial tour, you know, when you're looking at colleges, and the tour guide was like, it was a spring day, it was beautiful, and this tour guide goes, it's like this all year round. I had no idea she was being sarcastic, and I was like, this is perfect. And Snowpocalypse of 2013 happened my freshman year, and I didn't get food for 3 days in my dorm. Corvallis was not used to snow. But there's a ton of reasons to go. Even though it's a huge school, there's so many little clubs and stuff like that that makes it feel a lot smaller. So I was kind of nervous about going to a big school, but as soon as I got there, you find people, you know, you find what you're really interested in. It's a pretty easy choice.
Yeah, those first.
And the engineering school is awesome, so.
Yeah, those first 2 months of freshman year, like everybody goes to college knowing maybe a maximum of like 3 to 4 people. So everyone is so nice. Like everyone's trying to make friends right off the bat. So if you're worried about making friends, just be remotely
Super
pleasant
nice.
to people and you will find friends. Don't worry about it.
Did you have another question?
I just heard that OSU's engineering program in particular has a lot of credit requirements. What do you think about that?
So I came in only taking, I think, 2 AP classes in high school. And I did well in the classes, unlike Michael, so I didn't.
This is us all day, by
All
the way.
day. So I didn't take the AP tests, so I didn't even have the test scores that they were wanting. My GPA.
How did you know you did well then if you didn't take the test?
Because I had A's in the class itself.
You don't need A's in the class.
Just don't
When you have
study.
when you have a high school like mine, you just got to get a 4 on the test.
You should get a bumper sticker of that. Don't study.
Don't
It's fine.
study.
There are a lot of requirements, but at the same time, I think they're all very doable. They have a pretty high acceptance rate too. especially in engineering, because our engineering school is like 25% of the entire population. They just want more and more people, so.
Did you have to test into the Oregon State engineering school?
I had to do a math test.
You had to do it, but was that your freshman year or was that like your junior year?
Senior year of high school.
Oh,
So it
okay.
helped you place what math class you went into.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
Are they still doing college engineering in college? So in other words, you get your freshman and sophomore classes for free, but you have to compete to get into the your
So the
program
way,
study.
the way that it works is I had to take that class to see what math class I was going to get into, and then freshman and sophomore year is all like really basic engineering, so you could go into any of the majors after that. And then after the end of your sophomore year, there's no test. It's just if you have the GPA requirement, then you get to go into what's called pro school. And pro school is your junior, senior year, and that's where you do your senior project and much more like technical based classes. But there was no testing into it, which was nice.
Just the GPA
Yeah.
requirement.
Mhm.
And
And then you could retake classes if you didn't have a high enough one, which I had to do once or twice. Yes.
Do you know if the engineering, since you showed they had some the sketches and whatnot
Mhm.
for Daimler, do you know how engineering could work with that art-like stuff?
If I wanted to like go into the art department kind of thing.
Is there something like that in engineering?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you could do, I mean, mechanical design and mechanical engineering. I did so many CAD classes because I knew that's what I was interested in, but there were plenty of other classes that you could take that were more art focused. There's also graphic design, which isn't in engineering, but a ton of graphic designers actually end up in engineering industries because of that, because we need people like that that have a little bit more of a creative mind.
Also a product design major now that's kind of halfway in between
Mhm.
and engineering.
Exactly.
Technical and art.
Yeah. Yeah, they're super interesting. Yeah.
So what's the salary like for mechanical engineers?
That's one
Well,
reason to get into it.
yeah, that's
I love
one.
that.
Lauren makes more than me, so we'll go
Well, I
with
just got a
Lauren.
promotion. That's how it works.
You would still make more than me.
I will just say I live comfortably in Portland, Oregon, which is kind of hard to do sometimes. It's kind of expensive rent when you move out. That's one thing. You guys are so lucky right now to still be living under your parents' roofs. Go home and say thank you. Like, the fact that they buy your groceries and you don't pay rent is phenomenal. That's something that's hard to get used to. But salary, at least at Daimler, it makes it very competitive. They're trying to get the best talent, which means they have to offer us more to make sure we're there. So, yeah.
So, how do you find internships when you're like in college at OSU? Like, do they have like multiple opportunities they give you, or do you like go out and find them yourself?
They have tons. It's all what you put into it. My freshman and sophomore year, I was like, I don't really feel like doing anything, so I would just go home for the summer and work at like Pier 1, which sucked. But as soon as I got back junior year, I was like, all right, I should really start getting into this. I should start networking like I was talking about. The career fairs, if you're young enough that you can't start working full time, they're just like handing out internships, especially at OSU because it's such a big engineering department. They have career fairs like twice as often as like the business college does because they're trying to find people internships. So it's all, you get out of it what you put into it, for sure.
Yeah, I had to hustle really hard to get an internship. Like it was tough for me, but
That's
again,
one benefit
my
of going
respect.
to a larger school
Yeah.
like Oregon State.
I went to smaller school. I probably applied for like 100 internships going into my junior year. And I did 5 a day. I did 5 a day starting in like February. And yeah, I got one of them. So don't be surprised if it takes you a super long time to find one.
Mm-hmm.
Junior year, your junior summer and senior summer, I would say, that's when you really need to have at least one internship under your belt for sure.
Yeah. You had a question, yeah.
Do you think it's possible to get internships in high school?
Oh, for sure. I had one. I worked at a civil engineering company when I was in high school, part-time, so I would just go for like a few hours after school and then full-time over the summer. I learned real quickly I didn't want to do civil engineering, but that's a huge benefit. At least you're kind of getting what you get out of it.
If I were you, I would look I would decide what industry you would want to go in. And so, you know, I worked at a auto body shop one of the summers because I didn't have the grades to make an internship. Just getting into the industry is going to be huge. That's way better than, you know, because honestly, if I were to see a high schooler that had experience in an internship at an engineering company, I know you're not trained. I know that, like, odds are you're not really doing any technical work, but if I see that you're out there in the industry, have a manufacturing job or a prefab job or something like that, I know you've used the tools, you've been on the line. That is more valuable experience to me than just seeing like, oh, you hung behind someone's computer all day. That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
So thinking back to your high school, what things did you actually, from high school, what was actually useful to you going into college and into a job, and what things did you like feel like you never used?
Oh.
That was a long time ago.
Well, the part about not using it's like, what do I want to say? I don't do math right now.
I do math. So I do the math side, she does more of the design side.
For sure.
So yeah, I don't know if I said this, but I work on brakes. So for a mechanical engineer, that is like the trifecta perfect place. I work, it's dynamics problems, it's heat transfer problems. Like it's a really, really good place to be for a really technical module. So I love that. So I do all the math side. I make sure that these trucks stop in a certain distance. So when you're on the highway, you're not going to get squished. Like that's part of what I do. So I don't design nearly as much as Lauren does, but I make sure the trucks going out are safe. Back to your question, what I used in high school.
Good study habits. That might be.
Yeah, that I didn't have. Yeah, those will carry over. They will carry over, and you will learn the hard way. So.
I know homework sucks. Like, I hated doing homework. I still do, because I'm going to start my master's, and I'm dreading it. But doing your homework now, and your teachers did not tell me to say this, but really, doing your homework now and, oh, perfect. And learning that discipline like Michael was talking about, it's a lot easier if you have that momentum to just go into college doing the same thing you do already, rather than like, oh shit, now I gotta learn how to study. Like, start studying now, for sure. It's gonna be a lot of it. Yes.
On that particular theme, about deadlines. Do you ever have deadlines that you actually have to meet?
I feel like that's a loaded question.
All the time.
That's your loaded question.
Yeah. Yes. Deadlines in the real world are cutthroat.
Yeah.
It's not like, I might get this grade in the class. Now it's like, oh, am I going to get my paycheck? Like, I need to actually get stuff done.
Yeah.
Deadlines are tough.
It's fun for us to come out and spend a couple of hours with you guys, but we will definitely be late in the office tonight because everything is coming to, you know, gotta get it done by New Year's, gotta get it done by New Year's. So, yeah, it's gonna be a long couple weeks, these next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and you talk about projects that are 2 years long, and you think, oh, I'll get it done later. That 2 years is up so quickly that you're like, oh, wow, I should have gotten this done 6 months ago. You gotta stick to deadlines. It's a lot of time management, for sure. It used to be kind of easy, like in high school and college, because your teachers were telling you when stuff is due, but doing that own, like, personal discipline to get stuff done is definitely a learning curve, which is normal. Any other questions? You guys are probably ready for lunch by now, so am I.
Oh, hell yeah. Is there good places around here? I'm really hungry.
Do you guys do any programming in your jobs?
I do not.
All the time. Yes. No, seriously, all the time. As a mechanical engineer, all the time I am using programming. We have this really terrible, archaic system called IMAX. When I first started at Daimler, I booted this thing up. It looks like it's out of like the 1970s.
It is.
Because it is out of the 1970s.
They have been using it since the 70s. It's an all black screen.
Yeah.
And then the writing is in like yellow and white, and I had a headache for like the first 3 weeks.
It's so gnarly. It's really
awful.
bad.
And they're trying to like start a whole new system like IMAX Plus, Streamline. But a lot of the people that we work with have been working at Daimler for like 40 years and are so used to the old IMAX that they refuse to use the new one, which is super fun. That's a really fun argument to have.
Yeah, it's every
That's the
day.
one program I use and I dread it.
Yeah. If
Some
I
people
could go
love it.
back and retake one class, it would be computer science.
Yes.
And I got plenty of C's in other classes that I could have probably retaken. Computer science would be the one.
Both of you, yeah.
So is this IMAPS a system, or is it more of like a own unique language?
It's a system. It's more of a system.
So what language are you mainly programming in?
It's not.
It's kind
It's
of.
it's more a C plus. Is it
it's
C? What is it? It would
It's
be.
like
It's so
MATLAB.
old.
Have you guys ever heard of MATLAB?
Yeah, it's
kind of like
it's
MATLAB.
so old.
It's so old.
It's hard to know.
It's a low level language, so like assembly, but it's like 2 steps above assembly,
Yeah.
which means it's 5 steps below C.
C. Yeah, you can't. It's a really old tool.
I mean, it does have some ideas of C. It really does.
A lot of people end up building macros in Excel that will take like screen scrape iMatch so that they don't even have to look at the program. That's okay. Excel, I didn't even know how to use Excel in high school. We didn't have computers. You guys get Chromebooks. I didn't even have a computer.
Yeah, seriously, what is?
Yeah, Excel. If you can learn Excel in college, it is so beneficial. Because as an engineer, I was like, I'm gonna be designing stuff, and I'm never gonna use Word or Excel or anything. I use Excel so freaking much.
Excel, PowerPoint, and Microsoft Word are on my computer at all times. It's really
I put it on my
annoying.
resume because I was like, damn right, I know how to use these now.
Yeah, you need to know it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they use Google Docs.
Okay.
You guys are so much farther ahead than I ever was. Like,
Well, they use it. We teach them parts.
Okay,
We try to
just
teach them
knowing how
parts.
to do formulas and stuff in Excel, I was never taught. So it's going to be very beneficial that you guys know how to do that. You had a question, didn't you? No? Anybody else? Alright. Well,
yeah, when's lunch?
soon.
Not for another half hour? Wait, so what do you guys do? We're done at 11:10? 11? Or 12? 12:10?
The class ends at 12:24.
Good luck, guys.
89 minute long course.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
So we do block schedule.
That's nice.
So they get 4 classes a day,
Okay.
89 minutes each.
Man,
Oh, you guys will
should
love
come
college. Class is like an hour and you're out.
Yeah, that is super nice.
It's so
I don't know, those engineering classes are 3 hours long.
Okay, yeah, physics lab. Damn it. Like, wow.
Are you good?
All right, yep.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.